Hey Throners, it's Azor Hype here with an epic scene-by-scene breakdown of the amazing episode The Queen's Justice. Please make sure you click on that subscribe button to become a member of the Azor Hype family and click that notification bell to stay up to date with my daily videos for Game of Thrones Season 7. This episode starts off with Jon and Davos arriving to Dragonstone, and we finally have the amazing reunion between Jon Snow and Tyrion. Heartwarming moments are few and far between with how much war and darkness is falling upon the realm, and this moment, when they greeted each other with Bastard and Dwarf, shows that they still know how to live in the moment. It's really crazy to see how far they've come, King in the North and Hand of the Dragon Queen. I do love the interaction between Tyrion and Jon Snow about Sansa as well. Tyrion shows genuine concern for her well-being and reassures Jon that the marriage was not consummated. They also talk about how Sansa is catching on, and it really is true, she is becoming a player in the Game of Thrones. This season they are really hammering home the idea that she has finally learned her lesson, which in my opinion spells doom for Littlefinger. We then get Jon's first interaction with dragons, and I was hoping that one of them would stop and he would pet one, but I think that's going to happen later on in the season. So that was pretty awesome to see how Jon and Davos were shocked that dragons are actually real. One conversation that did stand out to me in this episode was the one between Varys and Melisandre. The conversation touched on the subjects of Melisandre being done advising kings, seeing as how she's brought ice and fire together. This is an absolutely huge line, as we see Melisandre thinks that Jon is ice and that Daenerys is fire, but perhaps these roles will change towards the end of the story. Varys talking about how the common folk and how they crave power once they've tasted it was, I believe, just a test to get more information out of Melisandre, much like the conversation he had with Daenerys. But Melisandre has bigger plans to return to Essos, to the Order of the High Priest of R'hllor in Atlantis one last time, then return to die in this country with Varys. Is this foreshadowing that she has seen her own death in the flames and the death of Varys as well? Perhaps Sandor Clegane isn't the only person this season that will have a vision in the flames. Next, of course, we have the big meeting between Daenerys and Jon, and Missandei is hilariously naming off Daenerys' titles, and Davos simply states that Jon is what he is, the King in the North. There is a stark difference in behavior and focus between Jon and Daenerys, as they are both so singularly focused on the task at hand of achieving their destinies. This episode focused on a few very different themes, such as past histories and hard truths, and I very much enjoyed the inspired back and forth because of Daenerys mentioning Torrhen Stark the King Who Knelt and how he pledged fealty to the Targaryens. But we must understand the past to predict the future, and I love that Jon was trying to tell this to Daenerys, that the past doesn't matter right now, and what matters is in the now, that the Night King and the army of the dead are coming on the realms of men. That's something that gets lost when people aren't on the same page in communication. And of course we know that Daenerys isn't the only Targaryen in the room, and we both know that they have more in common than they know. But they don't know each other that well enough yet, so perhaps they don't see each other's points of view. Some of the lines that stood out in this scene were, "You'll be ruling over a graveyard if we don't defeat the Night King," and of course Davos pointing out that if destiny has brought Daenerys Targaryen to Westeros with the Dothraki and her dragons, then Jon Snow has also been brought to the forefront with the Wildlings and his accomplishments because of his resolve. The fact that Jon stopped him before he could tell Dany about his resurrection was very important, and something I assume we will see play out at a later date. But let's be honest, Jon not bending the knee was absolutely badass, but Daenerys being unyielding like this scares me just a little bit. If she could channel this attitude into focus for what really needs to be addressed, then she could become an Azor Ahai-like figure. Next, we see a short scene where the Ironborn save Theon, and they tell him basically that he shouldn't be alive because Euron captured Yara. I get their reasoning, but in that moment, his PTSD kicked in, and he lived to fight another day. So who's to say he wouldn't have just killed Yara then and there and then captured Theon after he murdered Yara? I can't say completely if this is the case and if this factored into Theon's decision, but it is a possibility that we have to consider. I still have faith in Theon, and I do believe he is going to become a Theon, the latecomer, despite his failures. We then see Theon's crazed uncle arrive in King's Landing to the cheering crowds of the small folk. We've seen two very different sides of Euron so far, the side he shows when he's trying to gain the approval of Cersei and the face he puts on for the people of King's Landing, and the side he shows to Jaime and when he's in battle. He's manipulative, he's cunning, and he understands what he's good at. He definitely delivers justice in the form of gifts for the murder of Cersei's daughter Myrcella with Illyria Sand and Tyene Sand, and advances his agenda towards becoming King of the Seven Kingdoms along with Cersei and gaining Cersei as his gift. The back and forth between Jaime and Euron has been great, and at some point perhaps later on this season or next season they could meet head to head, but I do expect Theon will dispatch of Euron next season. We then get the scene that I predicted incorrectly because, well, I wanted to see the reenactment of what happened to Rickard and Brandon Stark, but Cersei torturing Illyria by giving her daughter the kiss of death with the long farewell was a great parallel. History has a way of repeating itself within the story, and this time revenge for Cersei is sweet because she can see Illyria squirm and make her suffer the same pain she did when Myrcella was murdered. It will be interesting to see how long this lasts. If they just leave them in the dungeon for the rest of the season and we don't see them again, perhaps Bronn could somehow be included in this scenario and somehow save Tyene, but I do think he's going to be with Jaime in the big battle next episode. So I don't know what's going to happen with this, but something big could happen with Illyria. Speaking of the spoils of war, which is the next episode's title, Jaime is spoiled by Cersei in the form of a blowjob and some sex. It's been a long time since we've seen them connect in this way, and I think that Cersei, since she's seen the impact from Euron and Jaime's reaction to that she wants to make sure she doesn't lose his trust or faith. But of course, Cersei has become even more ignorant as the handmaiden saw Jaime in her bed. This could come back to bite her later on, but I'm not quite sure if this was to show how confident Cersei has become or to showcase her actions to Jaime that she is becoming reckless. We hear from the handmaiden that a visitor from Braavos has come, and it's Tycho Nestoris of the Iron Bank. This scene was absolutely amazing, and I thought both Lena Headey and Mark Gatiss nailed the scene on every level. I loved how Tycho saw through everything that Cersei was saying, letting her know that strategy is indeed good to survive, but you know, he was there to come collect his debt, and we do know that Cersei accrued a large amount of debt, and so did the Lannisters with Tywin to the Iron Bank. So we see Cersei appeal to Tycho Nestoris because of the slave trade was in a downturn, but Cersei gains his respect as he says she is Tywin's daughter indeed. I don't think he was letting her know that she was wise like Tywin or cunning, but he was letting her know that she is more ruthless and fierce. This episode was absolutely amazing, and I love Tyrion admitting that he trusts the eyes of an honest man over the things that he hears. Hard truths keep on coming up again in this episode as we hear Jon say how he believes he is repeating the past mistakes like his uncle Ned Stark. But we hear Tyrion be objective and impart his wisdom on Jon, saying that he can help and he will try to appeal to Daenerys for him if he asks. We see a lot of give and take in this episode. Trying to see from someone else's perspective is often difficult in a Game of Thrones because of our characters' circumstances and what they have experienced. However, Daenerys takes Tyrion's advice and grants Jon at least his wish to mine dragonglass on Dragonstone. I have a feeling that Daenerys will warm up more to Jon, not only because of his faith in his idea to protect the North, but because she will have lost most of her allies. And I absolutely love this scene and felt that both characters understood that there was a massive challenge ahead for both of them. I think that in the end, this will bring them closer together. Next, we go back to the North, and Sansa is showing off her leadership skills by constantly thinking of the things that usually old men usually think about, and we see that she is thinking of how to feed the North and if the blacksmiths are doing their jobs properly, placing leather over the armor. We then hear Littlefinger's speech, which in my opinion not only applies to her, but all of the other characters who are going through trials in this episode. Fight every battle in your mind all at once. Everyone is your friend, everyone is your enemy, and everything is happening all at once and will be something that you've seen before. But his big lesson is interrupted, and we see the return of Bran, which is very bittersweet. I expected to feel more of a reaction from it, but maybe it's just because of how much Bran has changed, and because he didn't have much of a reaction himself. The lack of old Bran made me feel uneasy, but we have to understand that he understands how important his role is, because he's become more cold, aware that winter is coming. I predicted that Sansa walking away from the tree would be because of Bran saying that he saw what she experienced, the death of her father in King's Landing, and more specifically, her wedding night with Ramsay Bolton. It was very creepy, but it was so real. The way he explained it gave me chills. He sees everything in his mind, much like what Littlefinger was talking about, but on a different level. Bran has transformed into something completely different, a demigod with the ability to transcend normal comprehension, and yes, it is quite hard to explain. I can't wait to see what his next vision might be. But I can't help but say this scene left me feeling saddened that Bran would never be the same and that Sansa would have to relive this terrible moment again from her past. Now onto my favorite scene of the episode between Jorah and Sam and Archmaester Ebrose. There was something about this scene, the dialogue, the way it was shot, the connection between Jorah and Sam, and the way the light shined on Jorah. Light always has a way of shining on things that are important, and I can't help but think that this relationship and this interaction between Samwell and Jorah is important. They will definitely meet again with the convergence of characters happening at Winterfell next season, but let's be honest, there ain't no party like an old scroll party! Did you get that? There ain't no party like an old scroll party? Sorry, I had to throw a funny in. But Sam still getting punished, but understand that doing good deeds was the right thing was amazing. Another feather in the cap for Sam, and he is most definitely one of the most courageous characters of the series, very much like a Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. Like last week's episode, the Queen's Justice ended with a big battle but scaled down. It didn't turn out well for Dany in the end, but still had a large impact, since we're going to see more major battles over the next 4 episodes of Season 7. We are led by Tyrion's voice through the plan, and we finally get to see how Tyrion fixed the sewers of Casterly Rock. And this plan looked like it would work as the Unsullied attacked on 2 fronts, but they got tricked by Cersei and had the rest of their fleet destroyed in a maneuver with Euron Greyjoy's fleet. It's interesting to see how Cersei has calculated what Daenerys might do with her forces because Tyrion is her hand. It will be interesting to see how Grey Worm and his forces trek across Westeros and to see if Daenerys will trust Tyrion again by putting his plans into action. And finally, the last scene of the episode between Jaime and Olenna was fantastic. It was awesome to see him show mercy to Olenna by allowing her to die painlessly, but then again, it was also great to see Olenna stay true to herself. She is the Queen of Shade. It was amazing when she told him that she was one of the masterminds behind Joffrey's terrible death. This is majorly important because we now know that Jaime knows that his brother didn't murder his son. The scene was amazing on so many levels because I believe as a fan we want to root for Jaime to fracture his bond with Cersei, but I'm wondering if Jaime will actually tell Cersei about this and if she will believe him or not. She's manipulated him so far into making rash decisions, and I do believe he's learned a lesson tonight, but he will learn that it's too far gone next episode when their armies get decimated in open battle against Daenerys. But I have to say kudos to you, Diana Rigg, and thank you for delivering such an awesome performance as Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns. Here are my 3 favorite lines or quotes from the episode. Give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch, Tyrion channeling his inner Bronn. You'll be ruling over a graveyard, Jon painting a grim picture for Daenerys about the Night King, and finally everything in the final scene from Olenna, but more importantly her quote on Joffrey calling him a cunt. I really enjoyed this episode and hope you did as well, and would love for all of you to give me your favorite quote / line from the episode and give me your top 3 favorite moments. Let's keep this hype conversation going. If you enjoyed this video, a like would be much appreciated. I'll set a goal of 1,000 likes for this video, and please make sure you click on that subscribe button to become a member of the Azor Hype family and help this channel spread like wildfire. Don't forget to click that notification bell to stay up to date with my daily videos for Game of Thrones Season 7. If supporting the channel is something that you're interested in, you can support me on Patreon. I have all sorts of cool rewards, setting up early access to my write-ups, videos, and some extra hype content. Thank you so much for watching, and 7 blessings.
Fuck the king.
How much for your little clam?
It's